Hey there, I'm Juniper Mitchell, the studio director and lead programmer at Lunarust Software, and I'm here today to talk to you about the power mechanics in our game and how it works under the hood. We have a lot of new faces around here, so here's a quick recap of our game for the uninitiated. Autonomy is a sit-and-survive survival horror game with a focus on power management, physics objects, and threat management. The game is set inside of a sci-fi megastructure, stylized after both brutalism architecture and 70s interior design.
Just a quick cut in here before we get started. I wanted to thank you all so much for all the support that we got on the latest devlogs as well as on the channel. Lunarust has gotten over 400 subscribers as of recording this in the first few weeks after uploading for the first time. And the lymphocyte short that we uploaded a little bit ago got well over 20k views, which is more than I could have ever possibly asked for. Thank you so much, all of your kind comments and everything talking about the game. We hope you enjoy our future projects and subscribe to the channel so that way you can stay updated and continue to see what we're all working on here.
Now that you're all caught up, let's talk about that power management system. At the current point in the story, the whole space station is in reserve power mode in order to conserve and funnel as much power as possible into the reserves in preparation for the launch of the main Daphne computer. Ergo, in the observation deck you play in, you have to power all the machinery and equipment you need to use with these dinky little vacuum tubes. But why vacuum tubes? Because batteries are overused and boring. Meanwhile, vacuum tubes get to be these bright, flashy colors that you get to see from across the map. Vacuum tubes are a lot better than cables, which is what we used in our previous game, because cables are just a headache to program and prevent from getting stuck and caught on things, and to they're just a mess. Not worth it. Vacuum tubes can be used to power just about everything on the observation deck, including door controls, the vent closing system, the terminal computer, the ammo reloading station, and the deterrent system, used to ward off any potentially murderous robots. There are 3 different colors of vacuum tubes, that being yellow, blue, and pink. In addition to that, they can all change to various colors depending on what state they're in. At the end of the day, vacuum tubes are really nothing more than fancy number counters that have special rules about when they can add numbers and when they can remove numbers. While vacuum tubes have quite a lot of functionality, they don't really do anything on their own, and are largely at the whims of the sockets that they are plugged into. Even though the tubes don't do much on their own, they are responsible for telling the sockets how to respond when certain power values are reached. For example, they will automatically turn green when power is being drawn. Their overall light brightness will get dimmer and dimmer as their power gets closer to 0. When they run out of power, they will tell the socket that they have died and be forcefully ejected, and when they are ejected, they will start blinking red to indicate that they are out of juice. In order to accurately keep track of how much power they have to be able to keep counting regardless of what the frame rate is. Now that would be pretty hard, but most major game engines have already solved this problem for us with something called delta time. Delta time is ultimately pretty simple. It's just the representation of how long it has been since the previous frame and the current frame. So it's the delta between the previous and current frame. Thus, delta time. Now, do I know how game engines actually compute delta time? Absolutely not, but it's not like I need to know how it works, I just need to know how to use it. And so, with the power of delta time, no matter how shitty of a computer Autonomy runs on, we can keep track of power all the same. That way you can piss yourself in fear exactly when you're supposed to. For example, when the tube runs out of power and tells the socket to open the doors you've been trying to hold shut. Speaking of the sockets, it's time to talk about how those work. The sockets are the most important component in Autonomy's power system. Now, you might think that that title goes to the tubes, but not really. Like I said, they're really just glorified number counters. The sockets are where all the magic happens. The tubes may be where the power is stored, but the sockets are the ones that decide how much of that power you need to operate the machinery. And if you don't have enough power to meet the socket's demands, it'll make you all the more helpless to defend yourself. So, how do they work? Well, once you try and insert a tube into a socket, they start off with a nice long conversation about all the capabilities the two have. The socket needs to know things like, is the tube actually a tube? Does it have enough power to do what it needs to do? Does it have any power at all? Assuming the tube answers correctly to all these questions, the two are firmly slotted together and the socket will start sipping power from the tube. If not, then the socket will get very upset and start sparking and throw the tube back at you in a fit of rage. But it's okay. That'll never happen because you're good at power management and your tubes will always have enough power. Right? Anyway, the sockets have a variety of modes they can be configured in, depending on the object they're attached to, and what kind of power draw we want that object to have. For example, the terminal draws power at a consistent rate for as long as the tube is inserted, versus the deterrent system, which draws about 15 power over the course of 3 seconds anytime it's flashed. Or the doors, which draw a little bit of power just all the time while the tube is plugged in, but will draw a lot of power all at once anytime there's a threat behind the door. This is all accomplished by having a variety of methods the attached object can call on the socket to drain power in the varying ways it wants to. The various machines around the observation deck will use these sockets to communicate with the vacuum tubes. The sockets act as a sort of middleman between the machines and tubes. It is very important that the machines do not communicate directly with the vacuum tubes. I learned this lesson the hard way from our last game. Objects should communicate with each other as little as possible. If everything talks to everything else directly, then things get very messy very quickly. And before you know it, changing how much health an enemy has will cause the player to move 30% slower. Always try to avoid direct communications between your systems. Anyway, tangent aside, all machinery communicates with the sockets through 2 methods, those being has-tube and lock and drain. Has-tube is pretty self-explanatory. It allows the object to check if the socket even has a tube. Whatever object the socket is attached to will use this method to basically ask for permission to do whatever it wants to do. Now the other method, lock and drain, actually serves 2 purposes. The first, of course, being what it says on the label. It will lock the socket, preventing the player from taking the tube out, and then drain however much power it wants to drain over a certain period of time. This is the method most machines will use to expend your precious energy. However, this function can also be used as a power validation check. See, this function will also return true or false depending on if the current vacuum tube attached to the socket has enough power to perform the requested draining. This check, in combination with has-tube, makes sure you don't spend more power than you have. If this function is called and your tube doesn't have enough power in it, it is immediately ejected and the machine stops working, forcing you to either go get a new tube or to recharge the one you have. On the topic of recharging, now is a good time to talk about the observation deck's generator. The generator is the primary power source for all basic operation of the observation deck. You know, things like lights and power flow, recharging the main center console, all that stuff. Now, thankfully, unlike the sockets and tubes, the generator is actually a pretty simple mechanism, so we won't be here for long. Only 2 things about the generator really matter here: its relationship to its charging sockets, and its relationship to the rest of the observation deck at large. Unlike all the other machines in the observation deck that talk to the power tubes through the power sockets, the generator doesn't talk to or even know the tubes exist at all. All the generator really does is turn the charging sockets on and off, and then increases how much power per second it loses based off of how many of the chargers are actually charging anything. The amount of power per second the tubes gain, and whatever percentage they should charge to, is handled entirely by the tubes and the chargers themselves. The generator isn't involved at all. The generator is tuned to have about 65 power remaining if you charge 1 vacuum tube from 0 to full, and about 10%, 15% if you charge 2 from 0 to full. I don't remember, I programmed this thing a while ago. Doesn't really matter anyway. Point is, charging 2 dead tubes will leave you with almost no power left over. So you really want to keep an eye on where and when you're spending your power. But it's not the end of the world if this happens. The generator does automatically regenerate power over time if you're not using it. However, this recharge rate is pretty slow, so it's not exactly a get-out-of-jail-free card if you manage to drain all of your vacuum tubes. The other relevant part about the generator is pretty simple. Whenever it runs out of power, it broadcasts a signal to other objects in the observation deck that the power is out, and anything listening for that signal will respond accordingly, usually by turning itself off, like the lights. This approach is much more flexible than having the generator directly control the states of the objects that are supposed to run out of power. This allows things to handle the power outage in their own unique special way, which can enable much more interesting effects and set pieces. Having the generator directly control damn near everything is what I did in our last game, Heart of Ganymede. Link in the description if you want to play it. That was not a good idea at all. Absolutely everything was in direct communication with absolutely everything else, and it was an absolute clusterfuck to try and maintain. The power system in that game still has a lot of issues, even though we are now on revision 5. Most critical issue being, the generator has a very hard time trying to keep track of how much power you should actually be losing, resulting in a few scenarios where you can kinda just get power for free, not to mention all the bugs that aren't related to the power system, like dialogue just not triggering sometimes for God knows what reason. Sometimes objects will just fall out of the elevator. The power cables are really buggy. Turns out physically simulated cables are a pain in the ass to stop from bugging out. We had to remove pausing in most segments of the game because it would completely break the enemies. Their timings would be completely off, and then sometimes they would just stop spawning completely, leaving you soft-locked. But it was my first game, and I only had a month to make it, so I think it turned out alright considering that. I hope we get a chance to remake it one day, so I can go back and do it right, and give the game the justice it definitely deserves.
Cutting back in again, I think it is now time to read some of the comments that you left on the previous videos as well as the shorts that we uploaded. So, first of all, to address the complete avalanche of comments on the subject, yes, I know you want to have sex with the lymphocyte. Thank you very much for pointing it out. I think we all do. Another set of comments we got was asking about the drill head. If the lymphocytes are supposed to be security robots, why do they have a giant drill on their head? And the real answer is because I thought it would look really cool. And the lore-wise answer is because if there is a giant murder robot with a drill for a head in the room that you're in that will only attack you if you get violent, you're probably not going to get violent. We got a few comments asking why the lymphocyte has tits and nipple as well. Very insightful questions here. And the simple answer to those questions is that the lymphocyte is a woman, and women typically have those. We got a few comments comparing the design of the lymphocyte to the stork enemy from Signalis. And believe it or not, I've never actually played Signalis. I've been meaning to. It's on the bucket list, don't worry. So I went and looked up on the fandom page for Signalis, and I didn't understand why people were comparing her. I was like, she's just a tall woman. I don't understand. Then I went to Google Images and I understood immediately that, oh, that is horrifying. That's the most terrifying thing I've seen in a long time. There is a long-running line of characters within my work that have these sort of long beak cone shapes on their face. I don't quite know why I find this type of design very unsettling. I just kind of do. So that's the origin of that there. No Signalis inspiration was intended, although I should go play the game at some point. That is all for the comments reading sections. If I didn't get to your comment, it's probably because it wasn't up by the time of recording this. As of right now, we're only recording a few days after the previous devlog went live. We will try to have these reading comment sections in all of our future devlogs, so drop a comment and you might get read aloud on screen.
Alright, that'll do it for this episode. Sorry if it was really boring or just kind of bad. I've never recorded a video before, and talking in front of a microphone is not my thing. But I hope you found it at least a little interesting. One last topic before I go. In the comments of the last videos, some of you were asking for a Steam page to go wishlist the game on. I'm afraid we don't have one yet, but we should have one up by the end of this month. The game just isn't quite ready for me to consider Steam page worthy yet. It just needs a little more polish before we feel confident enough to put it up on Steam. But on the bright side, we do plan to have the itch demo up and available to play by the end of September. And we will be hosting internal playtests pretty soon, within the month actually. So if you want to help us out and play Autonomy before everyone else, come join the Discord server. We host game nights every week, and our community is very kind and welcoming. Anyway, thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to subscribe and ring the bell to get notified for more. We try to upload a new video once every 2 weeks. Alright, bye bye!